From the 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska, this is the N Report Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store.
Hi, everyone. Bill Rentschler alongside Kevin Sjuts in the 1011 Now streaming studio. Another edition of the N Report Husker Show brought to you by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. Kevin, it's been a hot second since we've had a chat. It was since before the bowl game, and you had New Year's and all the rest of this stuff. How have you been?
Okay. Happy 2025, Bill.
Yeah, happy 2025. There's stuff that we want to talk about, or stuff that, it's so far gone now. Really quickly jumping just first into some Husker football stuff to kind of put a bow on it, since we're kind of well into the offseason now. I feel like Matt Rule's really remade this coaching staff over the last 6 weeks. 5 new coaching hires, and we're still waiting on a special teams coordinator to replace Ed Foley.
Ed Foley's not going to return next year, so there is still one vacancy, but the staff will look significantly different next year. Obviously, Dana Holgerson is going to be full-time offensive coordinator, and that's really where it starts when you look at this coaching staff. You have a new play caller. Mm-hmm. In the time that he spent on staff for the back half of the season, you saw improvement with Dylan Raiola. You saw the team play just with a little bit of a different edge. There was a commitment to the run game. And then the situation where Emmett Johnson entered the transfer portal but then came back, I think that's really key for this team moving forward. But getting back to your point about the coaching staff, it's just going to have a different vibe for 2025. Da'Keel Shorts is going to be the receivers coach, and it seems like the whiteouts on the team have really taken to his coaching already, and they enjoyed getting to know him and working with him prior to the Pinstripe Bowl. Addison Williams is going to coach the secondaries, and he's a young guy, an up-and-comer, and seems to have a very chill vibe to him. It should be very interesting. And change isn't always a bad thing.
No, it's not. And again, I think Rule mentioned this, throughout the year, how different college football was going to be with the NIL, with the revenue sharing, and I feel like it's really kind of shown itself over the past several weeks. We don't need to get into the specifics of all the names. I think they've added over 15 new players to the roster, and spending a lot of money. It's very free agency like.
And some key additions too, Bill.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the needs that Nebraska had on the roster, they addressed every one of them. Some people are still crying for a running back to get added to the team, and there could be more movement following the spring season. But as it stands right now, and the way Nebraska remade its roster from 2024 to 2025, you're bringing a couple of really good wideouts. You also have a really good signing class at that position. You're bringing an offensive lineman from Alabama. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You're bringing a linebacker from Oklahoma who was an all-freshman team player a couple of years ago, nationally. I think that there are pieces in place for Nebraska to make a jump next year.
Yeah. And so the season officially ends on Monday when Notre Dame and Ohio State, the turnaround Ohio State's made in the last, from losing to Michigan now to making it to the national championship, but the season will officially end on Monday. Who do you got for that game?
I haven't even thought about it.
I think it's going to be either Ohio State blowout or a really close game.
I think Ohio State's going to win. And I think what's fascinating for me for Ohio State is just the change in the Buckeye fan base toward their quarterback, Will Howard. When Nebraska played in Columbus midseason, there was a lot of unrest. I mean, that stadium was very on edge about that game. They were critical of the coaching. And it seemed, if you remember, Bill, they weren't throwing the ball. They continued to run the ball when they couldn't run the ball against Nebraska. But my interpretation of all of that was the coaching staff did not trust Will Howard. Now they trust him a lot.
Yep.
He's made some big-time throws here late in the season, and including the Buckeyes' playoff run. I mean, they have talent all over the place, but I really believe the improvement of Will Howard late in the season has been behind Ohio State's run to the national championship.
So that will put a pin then in the 2024-2025 college football season on Monday, and mat drills for football are going to start in just a couple weeks, and before you know it, we're going to be sitting down here talking about the spring game in just a couple months.
Well, in the spring season, I was looking at the calendar yesterday, looking ahead to February, and we don't know specifically when Nebraska will start spring practice, but there's a chance it could begin in late February. If you remember last year, Matt Rule decided to start spring, and he can kind of squeezed everything together. He started it after the semester break.
Yeah, that's right.
Rule did not like having a few weeks of practice, then the guys going home or going wherever they are for break, and then coming back and resuming everything. He didn't like that interruption. So maybe he goes with that same process again this year. We'll have to find out.
So that kind of puts a bow on football for the year. Good season, though. I mean, 7-6, that's, beginning of the year, it was 6-6 in a bowl game. It was a good season.
Well, what were the expectations before toe met leather on, what was it, August 31st?
Yeah.
August 30th?
Yeah.
Whenever the season opened.
31st.
The day before that, what were fans saying?
Bowl game.
We want this to happen in 2024.
We want a bowl game.
Yeah. Got a bowl game.
Yeah.
And won a bowl game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think somewhere along the way, fans start to get a little greedy.
Yeah.
Because they saw how good Dylan Raiola was early in the season. And they saw how good the defense was midseason. So sometimes that expectation can be a moving target. But if you really stay true to, what you thought before seeing that team for the first time in the season opener, I think a lot of folks, the expectation was a bowl game. And I don't know that 7-6 was too far off what people were projecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think people were thinking more 7-5 for the regular season, and then the bowl game could have pushed Nebraska to 8-5.
There was obviously stuff they left out there. They could have won a couple games that they lost. But again, 6-6, you got to a bowl game, you won a bowl game, you went into the offseason with a win, which they haven't done in 8 years.
What was the one game that you would point to that says, man, that thing just would have flipped?
I'd probably put Iowa on top of the list and followed shortly behind by the Illinois game.
USC's in that conversation
USC,
too.
definitely in the conversation.
I still feel like they outplayed USC. They outplayed Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
They just melted at the end.
If Raiola hits that, I think it was Luke Lindenmeyer, and they just overthrew him by a little bit. They win that game, and who knows?
And it's still mind-blowing that Nebraska lost to Iowa.
Yep.
It was one of those situations where you look at the stats and
0 for 10 on third down, I think Iowa was.
And Keegan Johnson really didn't do much outside of one big run.
Yep.
So the emphasis, the game plan to shut him down, it was accomplished. It's just they didn't.
Just that one play. Well, 2 plays, the muff punt and then that one run.
Yeah.
So
if you look at 7-6 and knowing that 3 of the 6 losses were coin flip games,
yeah,
it incites some hope for the following campaign.
What would be your early benchmark for this next season?
Oh, Bill, that's too hard to say.
Too hard to say.
The reason I hesitate to give you anything is because
there's still 30 players that have to leave the roster.
And you need to see the players that have joined the roster and maybe see the team at a spring practice just so you can see how it looks. Right now, it would always be unfair to the team to try to put a number on it because, as you mentioned, free agency, well, it's like if you tried to predict the Dodgers record a couple years ago before they signed Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
Like Shohei Ohtani changes the game.
He does.
And maybe Dane Key changes the game for Nebraska. Or the rush edge from Missouri that transferred in.
Yeah.
Williams, I'm not going to try to say his last name. We got to work on that one.
Yeah, we do.
But my point is they've added some pieces and you don't know, are they going to keep the team at where they're at right now? How much will they improve them? Maybe they improve them drastically. Maybe they have a new Levante David on the team. And you're like, wow, he's a game changer.
That would be nice.
And now that's going to be a difference in at least one game.
He was so good. We could do a whole show just talking about Levante David.
He's my favorite, right?
I did not know that.
He's my all-time favorite Husker. Watching him play.
Ohio State game, ripping it out of Braxton Miller's hands. Penn State game, 4th down stand. Oh, yeah. We talk a long time.
Michigan game against Denard Robinson. That was my moment for watching Levante and covering Levante, who was he's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
He was always so friendly, and even after he graduated, continued to maintain strong relationships with some of us in the media, including myself. That Michigan game, it was up at the Big House. Denard Robinson was the quarterback for Michigan. And if you remember Denard's skill set, he didn't throw the ball the greatest.
No,
but he was fast.
He was very fast.
And dual threat of all dual threats. And he would tuck and run, but it's hard to run when number 4 is chasing you down. If you go left, right, or up the middle, Levante was all over Denard. And I remember one time I put the camera down on the sideline and just said, he is everywhere. And it's translated into
He's still doing it.
what I would consider a Hall of Fame career. He does not get the love he deserves. He's won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, multiple-time All-Pro, and he should be talked about in higher regard than what he gets.
I agree. Jumping from football, basketball's in full swing, Kevin. Both men and women. Women had a good day yesterday, beating Iowa in Iowa for the first time, I think, several years.
2018.
The men, though, their 20-game home winning streak comes to an end. Close game against Rutgers. Where are you kind of sizing up both of the basketball programs right now?
Well, that's a big one for Amy Williams. I mean, I know Caitlin Clark's not at Iowa, but exercising that demon of going across the border into Carver Hawkeye Arena, and it's a place that the team struggled against. And Nebraska and Iowa have had some epic women's basketball games, and to come out on the right side of that one, an overtime contest. So beating the Hawkeyes in their arena, that's great. No matter where Iowa stands this year, no matter that Caitlin Clark's not there, just winning there, but doing it in the fashion in which they did. They don't have Allison Widener. They don't have Natalie Potts, but Britt Prince made some big-time shots, and we are seeing this young talent for Nebraska women's basketball grow every single time on the court. She's coming into her own, and you can see her confidence rise. I mean, the three-pointer that she hit with 50 seconds left to tie the game, it was a step back. You don't take that shot if you're timid. She was confident. She was aggressive. She let it fly, and the bench went crazy. And then Widener made 2 free throws with 2 seconds left, which forced overtime.
Yeah, and so, I mean, between Widener, Potts, and I think, Kennedy Williams, Amy Williams' daughter, I think she had a knee injury, so she's been dealing with a lot of injuries on her team. But 14-4, 5-2 in the conference. They've been in the top 25. I don't think they are currently, but they're right there on the fringe. So pretty good start to the season for Amy.
They've been in the top 25 as high as 21 this year. This week they were in the others receiving votes, and that was after a pretty nice week last week. So now Nebraska goes to Iowa, and they pick up another win. So this looks like an NCAA tournament team to me.
Yeah, they've won 4 in a row. They'll have Wisconsin at home on Monday, 7 o'clock tip. You can watch that on the Big Ten Network. Meanwhile, Fred Hoiberg, the men's side, had a really good win, I'd say, against UCLA at home back a couple weeks ago, but lost 3 in a row now.
Yeah, the losses, the 2 road losses, they weren't fun to watch for fans.
No.
But they're on the road, and that's been kind of a trait
really
of Fred Hoiberg teams over the past few years, is that they struggle away from Lincoln. But at home is where they make their hay. And that's what really kind of stings about the loss on Thursday night to Rutgers, because that's a team that in the net ranked, I think, in the 90s. However, this Rutgers team has 2 freshmen. Well, they start 4 freshmen, but Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, they are projected NBA lottery picks. They combined for 45 points. They're the real deal. And Harper took over that game late and was finding ways to get to the hoop. But Nebraska ultimately lost at home, snaps a 20-game home winning streak, and it's caused, just in some of the conversations I've had this morning, it's caused, I don't want to say panic, but some concern across the fan base, because if they're unable to win at home and they have an inability to win on the road, what does that mean for the postseason for this team?
So, again, it's obviously still early. You still have all of February, all of March. A lot of the bracketology kind of have them 8, 9, 10 seed in that area. Obviously, it's going to go down a little bit.
I saw one today that has them at 11, which means they're on the bubble, and they're probably one of the last teams in.
Yeah. So they go on the road to Maryland on Sunday. That's always tough to play out in College Park. That's never been a great spot for Nebraska basketball.
They don't have Jameer Young, but it's a team that's been competitive in pretty much every game they've played this year. But then after Maryland, Bill, if you look at Nebraska's next 2 home games, I truly believe that these are the 2 most important games on Nebraska's 2024-25 schedule, because Nebraska just suffered a home loss, which is rare. If they start to have multiple home losses, now there's reason to sound the alarms, because it's USC and then Illinois. And Illinois is one of the Big Ten contenders this year. And USC has had some pretty big-time wins. In fact, they beat the Fighting Illini. So Nebraska's going to need to win those games.
Yeah. Their next 5 games. I mean, it's never an easy night in the Big Ten by any means, but Maryland, USC at home, at Wisconsin, home against Illinois, and then you got to go all the way out to Oregon.
And that's the stretch
February.
right there. Wisconsin, Illinois, Oregon. You got ranked team. That's the grind of the schedule. But if you look at the back end, it does lighten for Nebraska. There are, I hate using the phrase winnable games, but there are opportunities for Nebraska to finish the regular season strong. So they just need to weather the storm. Right now they're on a 3-game skid. If they can try to sneak a win out at College Park, or perhaps defend home court over these next 2 very difficult games at Pinnacle Bank Arena, I think that the ship gets pointed back in the right direction, and there's a nice on-ramp to the NCAA tournament in the month of late February and then into early March.
All right. Well, another program we wanted to touch on because they have a big match duel, I should say, coming up tonight. Husker Wrestling. Mark Manning got his squad. They beat Minnesota last week. You know, that was a top 10 matchup. You know, they got tripped up against Northern Iowa, but Northern Iowa's a good program. But
That's where Manning used to coach before here.
Yeah. Number
We're
one.
burying the lead here because, for me, this is the Friday night show.
Yeah.
Nebraska Wrestling, number 6 nationally with a 6-1 dual record, and their 1 losses to a top 10 team. And they're welcoming in the national champion favorite, number 1 ranked Penn State, 7-0 this season. They have not lost a duel since 2020, Bill.
That's been a long time.
A 5-year dual winning streak. What?
I mean, that's really hard. I mean, and in the Big Ten, how many top 10 matchups have they won in that streak? I would be curious.
They've beaten Iowa.
Yeah.
They've beaten Nebraska. They've beaten Minnesota. It's not like they're playing, in the Missouri Valley wrestling. They are facing, pun intended, heavyweights every single duel in the Big Ten. And this is a team that prevails time and time again. So fans that are going to the Devaney Center tonight, which I'm guessing the crowd, they could push for the attendance record, which is over 5,000. In fact, the attendance record that currently stands was set when Nebraska last hosted Penn State, by the way. So fans going tonight, they're excited to cheer on the Big Red, right?
Yeah.
And a team that has a lot of talent. But they're also going to witness one of the elite teams in college wrestling. You're going to see 3 wrestlers from Penn State that have wrestled in a national championship match. And 1 defending champion. Ooh. And that's at heavyweight.
8 o'clock tonight.
It's on Big Ten Network.
Big Ten Network. So again, if you can't get down there, you can still watch it. I mean, I don't know what a line on wrestling would be. I mean, how do you kind of square that one up, Kevin?
Well, it's going to be tough for Nebraska. They have to. They're going to have to steal 1 or 2 in there.
Yeah.
If you look at bout by bout, there's 10 weight divisions, right? I would say that it probably leans Penn State on 6 of the bouts, if not 7. So Nebraska's got to steal some.
Yeah.
We don't know what weight they're going to start at. 125. That everybody's saying that's the match to watch. That's Caleb Smith for Nebraska, who's ranked 6th nationally. He's going to go up against number 12, Luke Lillidahl, a freshman for Penn State. So that would be a big one for Nebraska to get. Because you got to figure that Penn State's heavyweight is going to win.
Yeah. I think that's...
no disrespect to Harley Andrews, who's a really good wrestler, but he's going up against a national champion.
Yeah.
So if you just kind of look at past history and the way it leans, let's see. Penn State has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of their 10 wrestlers, Bill, are in the top 5.
Jeez Louise.
Nebraska has 2.
It's pretty salty.
But Nebraska has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the top 10. That's where those guys, they're going to have to bring it tonight. And I saw a hype video that Nebraska Wrestling put out this morning, and Mark Manning's message to his team at the end of practice yesterday was, just let it all go.
Yeah.
Have fun and wrestle your butts off.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because there are stories in sports, not just wrestling, any sport, where Goliath falls.
Yeah. Wrestling is one of those sports, obviously football, basketball, it's a team sport. One guy can play really well, but you can still lose. Wrestling, it's just you. Just one guy.
Right. But you have to have each guy. I'm really excited for it. It's going to be a great atmosphere, and Coach Manning going back to last Saturday and then reiterated it on Thursday when we went over there for interviews. He said he wants the fans there. He wants them rowdy. He wants to try to have a home advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of circulated through the college wrestling world, and somebody even had a quip of, when you're wrestling Penn State, doesn't matter where you're at. But if there's one fan base to accept the challenge, it would be Nebraska.
It is absolutely the Nebraska fan base. Lastly, Kevin, before we let you go, baseball and softball right around the corner. I believe Fan Day for baseball is coming up at the end of January,
January 31st.
And then I believe February 1st for football. Any early kind of headlines out of either one of those programs that you've been hearing at all?
Jordy Ball is ranked as the number 2 player to watch by one of the softball publications. Nebraska baseball will start inside the national rankings. That's no surprise. Remember what they did last year, and Gabe Swanson electing to come back to play this season is huge for that team because he had just a tremendous postseason.
6 home runs in that Big Ten tournament, something like that?
Big Ten tournament MVP, and continue to hit the crap out of the ball when they went to the NCAA regionals. So they have a lot of players back. Dylan Carey's going to be leading the infield again. He's one of the harder the order guys. Case Sanderson had a really nice summer. That's just to mention a few. I'm just trying to name drop a few guys. And then outside of Brett Sears, most of that pitching staff is going to return. And that spells good things for Will Bolton. Plus, they added Cale Frost, the Summit League Player of the Year, who comes to Nebraska from South Dakota State.
There you go. Softball opens their season in Clearwater, Florida on February 6th. The baseball team opens their season in Scottsdale, Arizona, February 14th in the MLB Desert Invitational. So we'll look forward to all that here in just a couple weeks. We'll obviously look forward to the wrestling highlights tonight at 10. Kevin, anything else you want to make sure you get mentioned before we let everyone go?
Well, high school basketball.
Full swing.
I know this is the N Report podcast. We focus on Nebraska, but one of the big things that has been grabbing our attention this week has been high school basketball, specifically the Medecus basketball tournament.
Yes,
the girls' championship games are tonight at Beatrice Auditorium. The boys' finals are tomorrow, Saturday, and the A Division boys' championship will be Johnson Brock, number 1 in the A Division, versus Freeman, number 2 in the A Division. Both teams are undefeated. Both are state championship contenders, and I expect there will not be many open seats at Beatrice Auditorium.
And I would just like to say we got through this year's Medecus tournament without any weather concerns.
Tomorrow's cold.
Well, I mean, it's cold.
Just tell me that there's not going to be any snow.
No, there's no snow. No, we can deal with the cold. We're inside for basketball.
That's good.
All right. Well, good stuff, Kevin. Appreciate your time as always. Appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching another episode of the N Report Husker Show, brought to you by Fat Dogs. Until next time, hope everyone has a nice weekend. Hope everyone stays warm.
You've been listening to the N Report Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dogs Convenience Store. Watch, listen, and stream on the 1011 Now app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more Husker coverage throughout the week, watch the N Report on 1011 Sports at 6 and 10 p.m. and